Hi, I'm Colleen Evans, CEO of the Campbell River Chamber of Commerce, and you're watching Insights in Business, a presentation of the Campbell River Chamber of Commerce in partnership with Shaw TV Studios. And we're filming today here in Campbell River at Shaw TV Studios. And today's segment is the construction industry. A recent survey of the CEOs, 200 CEOs of Campbell River, identified that the construction industry is one of the leading drivers of our local economy. So we're really looking forward to get to know a bit more about this industry. And our two guests today are Rory Kumala, CEO of the Vancouver Island Construction Association, and Doug Pedetz, who is an industry advisor from the Industry Training Association. So welcome, Rory and Doug.
Welcome.
And we're really looking forward to learning a bit more about what this industry impact is, the sustainability of the industry, and what the workforce challenges and opportunities are. So maybe the first question, Rory, I'll just ask of you, maybe a bit more about VICA first, what the industry is, and then we'll lead into what the opportunities are.
Sure, thanks Colleen. So the Vancouver Island Construction Association is a non-for-profit that represents over 430 members who participate in primarily the institutional, commercial and industrial sector of the construction world that we see on Vancouver Island. They come from all walks of the industry, from general contractors, trade contractors, subcontractors, and then the business support elements that support that. We have architects, engineers. So we're quite broad in our membership. It's a valued membership that contributes greatly to what goes on the island.
And Rory, you've only been, I think, about 15 months in your new role.
I have, yes. So
going up and down the island and meeting the communities, and that's great.
It's been quite exciting. Vancouver, with VICA, the Vancouver Island Construction Association, our territory is the island, and with the island, there's a lot of highway between here and Campbell River. But I've spent the last 8 months trying to spend more time in the community to understand and to reflect on what's going on in the industry and see it firsthand, and to connect with the community to understand what's going on and why is it important to those communities. So it's one of the mandates that I choose that as VICA I think is important, and it's important to connect and partner and have a dialogue with the Chamber of Commerce, for instance. So I really welcome the opportunity to come and talk to you today.
Well, that's great, and we appreciate the collaborative approach to what you're trying to do up and down the island, so thank you and welcome.
Thank you.
And Doug, how about the Industry Training Association? What, maybe a brief overview? I know you've been there for decades, and that's a really positive strength that you bring to it, because the industry has changed so much. So maybe just a brief overview about what the Industry Training Association is about.
Thanks, Colleen. Yeah, the Industry Training Authority actually is a BC Crown agency that is part of the Industry Training Authority Act. We have 112 staff, 15 apprenticeship advisors across the province, and we're involved in working with employers, employees, unions, labor organizations, and training providers, as well as school districts, and provide funding for apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship. We use the term foundation programs in BC. We're very much involved in careers and supporting careers in the trades. Part of my role, of course, is working within this region, which includes the Nanaimo and the north part of Vancouver Island. My role primarily is to work with apprentices and employers. I believe I have approximately 3,000 apprentices that I oversee, and probably 1,500 plus employers. Our organization really is responsible for just over 100 different trades that we provide certification. 49 of those are Red Seal trades, which are recognized nationally, and the others, of course, are provincial certification trades. So we're very much involved in providing credentialing processes for all of these trades, and there's a standard process that we map out that's actually on our website in terms of the training that's required for each apprentice and the employer's involvement in training these apprentices.
So first of all, I have to say that we'll certainly acknowledge on this segment your website so that people that are interested can find out more information. But I think of you as very collaborative too. So I think I mentioned that you were an association and you actually are an authority. But,
correct, yes.
I want to acknowledge, Doug, that you've been very collaborative as well within our community and region, and just really appreciate the outreach that you've done as well. So
thank you.
We're glad to have you as a guest today for sure. So Rory, what does the construction industry look like in our industry, in our region, from an industry perspective?
Well, I think overall the construction industry is very healthy in a sense that there's a good distribution of project types from within the industrial, institutional, commercial work. But a big driver for this has to be the housing. Housing up and down the island is at an all-time high. I think we're up about 23% in the Campbell River region. It's only growing. It's been up year over year about 20%, 18 to 20%.
And
so
is that comparing 2017 to 2018 that you're using that stat?
It is, yeah. 2016 to 2017, I think we saw 18%. We forecasted 2017 to 2018 being about 22%. And I have some initial numbers that are suggesting that we're going to see those targets,
really?
Particularly around the residential. So there's no shortage of activity when we're looking at construction projects on the island, and considering the region with the BC Hydro projects up at the John Hart Dam, those are significant projects for the island, and there's a lot of government investment happening on the island. There's a lot, and it's regionally within the geographic area. But this activity is not just for Campbell River. It is mid-island, it's South Island, and we do see a fair amount of activity even when we look right to the north of the northern tip of the island. So, the construction industry is never really seen this type of construction in the sense that how busy it's been. And I don't see it changing anytime soon. I think we have so much activity, we have so many projects, we have so much need for additional workers, skilled trades to perform these projects that is really what what I see as the biggest challenge is how do we provide the people to make these projects happen.
And I think, exciting to hear this success story, but as we move through the rest of this segment to better understand what the sustainability model is, and again, address that from a workforce development perspective, from Doug's perspective, but how are we going to be able to ensure that the workforce that employers need within the construction industry is going to be there to meet their needs? So Doug, from your perspective, last year the Chamber hosted a roundtable discussion with employers, and it was interesting because I think you've had those roundtable discussions up and down the island, but many of the employers still did not really have a sense of what some of the opportunities are within the industry, what some of the credits are, what some of the community supports are. So could you maybe begin by just sharing with us what are some of the community supports that maybe employers are not as readily aware of that you offer?
Yeah, well, first of all, there are really two employment agencies within the Campbell River region. We have North Vancouver Island Foundation Society and also the North Vancouver Island Aboriginal Training Society. Those two organizations are very engaged in working with employers within the community, not just in the Campbell River region as well, but also the northern part of Vancouver Island. They service Port Hardy, Port McNeill, Port Alice area as well, and they do work with employers in terms of marketing, hiring positions, also creating matching processes and with people that are looking for employment in the industry, as well as having employment advisors or counselors that work with wage subsidy processes as well. We also have North Island College. That's very involved in training up pre-apprentice candidates. They have a number of foundation programs, such as heavy-duty carpenter, plumbing program. And those graduates, of course, are going through a pre-apprenticeship program, and the intent is that they're acquiring all the necessary skills to be safe on the job and learning some basic skills about equipment operation so that they can go onto the work site and have some independence when they start their job, and the employer being comfortable with their skill sets as well that they bring to the job. As well as, and I don't really know that the community recognizes the fact that we also have, Industry Training Authority is very involved in the support with school districts through youth training and youth work. This is where candidates within the high school that are looking to pursue a career in the trades actually can start training while they're still in high school, and we refer to that as dual credit process, where they take and count work experience components towards their graduation requirements as well as towards their apprenticeship.
So can I ask you a question, Doug? It was interesting to hear that many employers didn't even realize that these community resources are there. And as you say, organizations like NIVI, it's the North Vancouver Island Aboriginal Training Society, and North Island Employment Foundation Society are there to help support the employer. Sometimes employers just feel like, ooh, this just feels like too much work, and that, you know, I'm going to have to do it on my own. But recognizing that these resources are there to support them. But it's interesting what you just talked about with that dual credit, because it really has to begin even earlier at the high school level for individuals thinking about maybe the potential to consider their trades. So how do employers, do they look at your website to find out about this information, or how does that connect happen?
Well, we have school district representatives actually that work with identifying the candidates that are in grade 11 and 12, for example, who may have an interest in, first of all, finding out more about the trade. They can engage in job shadowing, which they might go and visit an employer to find out more about it during the day. They can engage in work experience, and so when they put all of these processes together after conversation with an employer, conversation with counselors within the school system, they can then take the next step to where they can actually be involved in training, where they would actually go to North Vancouver Island College, for example, and while they're still in school, and actually complete a foundation program or pre-apprenticeship program, and actually start work while they're in high school
when
as well.
And
so the youth candidate actually is getting a very good start by not only completing their first level of technical training and also finding employment. And the school districts are also involved in assisting in that process as well. And then the candidate starts to acquire their work experience hours towards their apprenticeship.
Such a great path, right in the high school. And Rory, it's interesting, something you shared with me was a Globe and Mail article which talked about how Canada is being considered in crisis because of the lack of access to a skilled workforce and the maturing workforce. And I just wonder if you could share, is it crisis in Canada, and would you consider it a crisis for BC, or what's your sense of access to that workforce where we sit right now in Vancouver Island?
I think it's at a critical point in a sense that, as Doug talks about, you know, there's so many job opportunities in construction. I think one of the things that gets lost is the people that we want to get into construction have so many choices now as far as job opportunities are concerned. You know, I think they want to pursue the best and the most lucrative, but you know, within construction we can say, you know, where can you finish 4 years education debt free and then come out earning, let's say, $65,000 or $70,000 a year.
Right.
Very few places can do that. But we're also competing with the tech sector, you know, the healthcare sector, where we have so many jobs that need to be filled, and all of the industries are actively pursuing those people to fill those jobs.
Sure.
So having incentives at the high school, I think, are important. You know, when I went to high school, it was, you know, there was the academic kids, and then there was everybody else.
Right, they kind of streamed you
They
into.
streamed you,
yeah.
and you know, the academics were academics, and that was fine. But the system was being designed around post-secondary types of education,
Right.
Where construction, the trades, the vocations that are being presented in the high schools now create a really good path for somebody who's creative. Technology is playing more into our industry than it ever has before.
Sure.
It's taking a new level of effort. It is a physically demanding career choice, but it's also the most broad in a sense that you can start as a carpenter and move your way up through to become the CEO of ITA.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So,
Doug has done.
Yes.
right? So, and I think that's not just a one-path success story. That is
Sure.
an element where people who are running successful construction companies, they start off with, you know, one or two people working in their company, and they grow, and then they become successful, and they learn a bit more, and they become less of a, you know, less on the tools, and, you know, more into the business part of it. And you know, I think that can't be going, you know, that has to be recognized, that there are so many different pathways that allow people to be successful, and I think construction is one of them.
Well, and I think you identified that. If you're interested in technology, there's a pathway for you to take if that's your interest. If it's entrepreneurship, there's a way for you to move forward as a business owner. But Rory, if you look at what's happening in Canada and then overlay that with what's happening on Vancouver Island, is an aging workforce and access to skills a concern for the industry?
It is. So within BC, we have a demographic that by 2025 we have about 225,000 people working in BC in the construction sector.
Okay.
By about 2025, we're going to be 15,000 people short in that industry.
15,000?
15,000 just in the province of BC to support our construction industry. And I think the numbers that we're seeing is we have about 1 in 70 youth in high schools engaged in trades training, and that might be a little more now, maybe it's up to 4. But to meet the demand, some of the studies that I'm seeing suggest that it should be 1 in 10, 1 in 5,
Really? Wow.
to meet the ongoing demand that construction is going to need, both regionally, both provincially, and then nationally. And I think this trend is starting to see its way across North America, where trades are in demand. And the statistics are suggesting that we're not bringing enough people in to offset, 1, the demand, and then 2, the retiring workforce that are leaving.
And
the
that's
industry.
key. And Doug, from your perspective in terms of apprenticeship and ITA, what's your sense of that?
Well, I think Rory brings up a really good point. You know, I think one of the things based on statistical information is that we have an aging workforce. For certified tradespeople, I think the average age is 55. It takes about 4 years for an apprentice to acquire certification. So it's just a cautionary note, I think, for employers to engage in apprenticeship training as people retire, having somebody there to be at the same skill level as a journey person, you know, within the 4 years. And by doing that and training now, it brings the employer in a position where if somebody does retire within their company, they have somebody there that can fulfill that individual's responsibilities. So,
because we hear that all the time about succession planning, where employers are looking for, you know, maybe them in their business, even themselves, sort of moving out of the business, maybe staying on as a bit of a mentor or silent partner in some aspect. But from a succession standpoint, if you don't start investing in it now, you know, it becomes a significant issue when you start to not only not be able to compete with the recruitment process, but you want to sell your business and you just don't have the capacity within your own business. So do you see, Doug, from what you've heard around the round table and from your travels up and down the island, what are the barriers then? Why are employers hesitating to really assume more apprenticeships within their own businesses?
Well, I think it boils down to, first of all, we have a number of tax credits that are available to employers. There are incentives to be engaged in the creation of hiring and training positions, as well as completing out apprentices. So there is what we call or refer to as an apprentice job creation grant or tax credit.
Okay,
for
and
Red
what is that?
So it involves basically 10% of the wages up to a maximum of $2,000 per year for the first 2 years.
Okay.
And then we also have a BC tax credit for non-Red Seal programs as well, which is 20% of the overall wages up to a maximum of $4,000 per year for the first 2 years. And then it moves into, because many apprenticeship programs are 4 years of training. Then we have what we call a BC completion tax credit. So that assists the employer in the 3rd and 4th year of the apprenticeship. There's also an enhanced tax credit that's available if employers engage in working with and training Indigenous individuals as well. There's also wage subsidy programs that are available through working with the employment agencies here in town, which basically cover off a portion of the wages for the first 6 months.
So many credits, so many opportunities. I think we all need to, when I look at the Chamber, we need to do a better job of maybe communicating that out, because I think sometimes what I hear from employers are apprenticeships are a bit of a barrier in the sense that, they may train somebody and then they move on to another employer. But as you say, that investment in the beginning, there's tax credits, community support, incentives for them, and it really becomes a real catalyst for them to consider employment opportunities. So.
Yeah, I just to add to this, Colleen, I think it's, apart from the awareness of tax credits that are available, it's also the awareness of the community support groups within Campbell River.
Right, yeah.
And the willingness of those community supports to certainly work with employers to address their human resource needs, as well as the awareness of what I spoke about, the youth training and youth work programs as well. Yeah. Because there are people within the school districts that are certainly willing to work with employers in terms of bridging that process, shall I say, for high school students to a trade area. So.
I think the message, Doug, is you're here to help. And employers should look to ITA to really be a resource to help them consider apprenticeship and succession planning and all the things we talked about. It's a very short program, and I could talk to you for a lot more questions that I have that I'd love to explore. But maybe let's just look at a couple of wrap-up questions. I want to talk to you, Rory, about social procurement. Sure. And Doug, I wanted to just have a sense of what you think some of the opportunities moving forward, future planning for apprenticeship. So, Rory, from a social procurement perspective, what is social procurement and why should we be interested in it?
Well, a social procurement is effectively an initiative whereby public investment made by a municipality or a government agency into a construction or infrastructure project would translate into some social benefit to, and it's around people. It's around translating that benefit. If I'm buying a project, that there will be a certain amount of that investment is going to hire barriered individuals, apprentices, regional hires, just to try and bolster the benefit of that construction spending dollar.
So if you're already going to be spending on this project, this construction project, you're saying that let's look at an opportunity to bring a community benefit into that
Correct.
construction project if it's already going to happen.
And it's around people.
And around people, okay.
You know, it can't be building a soccer field or, you know,
Right,
something to that
right.
effect, which happens already.
Right.
It's really around how do you create a benefit to people in a sense of people who are barriered or, like I say, marginalized, who can't seem to get a break. So I've worked with the Chamber of the City of District of Campbell River, City of Victoria, Town of Qualicum, where we've spent the last year creating and doing a bit of a pilot analysis of what does a social procurement look like, and trying to make a balance between what are the objectives of a regional government and what are the abilities of the industry to deliver that social benefit.
Because the needs are very different, or the objectives maybe are very different.
Well, you know, to something, you know, to what Doug is talking about bringing in apprentices, a lot of our members, you know, they actively pursue and they have very robust apprenticeship training plans, particularly in the ICI sector, the institutional, commercial, industrial.
Right.
So, you know, they know what their needs are and they know they have to bring people in. But when you look at a social procurement benefit, it has to be, one, it has to be designed by the community, and an understanding that the community has to have capacity to provide those people. It also, I'm not suggesting that it comes at, you know, you can do it for the same cost.
Right.
What I'm saying is that if they are to come into the construction industry, you know, I kind of look at it as three things. They have to be able to work safely. And you talk about safely. They have to be reliable, and they have to be able to contribute. And that's the benefit of where we find the balance of, if you're going to come to the construction industry, you have to be able to do those three things.
So that's really exciting. That's a great way to wrap it up, because I think what I'm hearing you say is that there's a pilot project out there that's going to look at this social value menu to create opportunities to leverage the public tax dollars to really create a community benefit, and that's exciting. And
we want it balanced.
Right.
We want a sense that takes what the construction industry's concerns are, as well as the
Within,
public
for sure.
objectives, to say you're not going to get everything, and it may come at a cost, but the value of that cost is better rolled into a capital project versus just laying out projects for a social program.
What a great initiative. And will we be able to look on your website to hear more information as this starts to unfold?
I think when you start to see it unfold, you'll see more information on our website, and certainly with our partners that we're working on with the City of Victoria, Campbell River, Qualicum, as well as working with AVICC to try and grow and make this something that works for everybody, as opposed to works for a municipality, doesn't work for the industry. Ultimately, we want to benefit the individual.
And good for you, Vika, to take a leadership role in having industry at the table with the municipalities and the communities talking about what this could look like. So we look forward to that. Doug, I think we're running out of time. I could have talked to you. I have a number of questions, and I know it would be really exciting to share that question about why employers continue that discussion about the importance of employers looking at apprenticeship. Maybe the best thing to say is just to look at the ITA website and contact you, because you're the advisor to employers. So I know you're very open to meeting with employers?
I am, yes. So, you know, my role certainly is to work with employers in the community and I guess point them in the right direction and assist them in terms of bringing apprentices on board within the company. So anything I can do.
That's exciting, and I think with North Island College new trades expansion facility, Campbell River, and just our whole region, it's exciting to see where all the opportunities may be. And I think to address both of your concerns, workforce development is going to be key to supporting a growing industry. So I want to thank you for joining us today. Our guests have been Rory Kumala from the Vancouver Island Construction Association, Doug Pedetz from the Industry Training Authority, and you've been watching Insights in Business, a presentation of the Campbell River Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for joining us today, and we hope you'll join us for future segments.